On November 2nd, 2015, one of my friends said to me, "Be happy that you're not another statistic." It kind of threw me off guard, but he was sort of right. I had just been through a week of absolutely hell. I was sick, sore throat, fever, night sweats. It was like I was a concrete building being hit by a wrecking ball. But I was in the middle of midterms, so I couldn't really focus on that. It wasn't until I looked into the mirror and saw my pale face that was 15 pounds lighter that I realized something was wrong. I decided it was best for me to go to the hospital and get it checked out. After 2 visits, I was diagnosed with a viral infection, which was something they were unsure about, really couldn't explain, but a prescription of ibuprofen would take it all away. One thing that I will remember from that visit was my second visit, when the doctor asked me, "Are you HIV positive?" What? How could a doctor ever ask me if I was HIV positive? I'm not HIV positive. Or could I be? I realized, just to be on the safe side, I probably should check it out. And so I went to the clinic. The doctor took a saliva sample and told me 10 minutes. 10 minutes and the decision would be made. 10 minutes, and I could become HIV positive. I thought about all my symptoms, and I thought about the research I had done, and they matched up pretty well, which scared me even more. 10 minutes later, my doctor came in and said to me, "You are not HIV positive." So my friend was kind of right when he said I was not HIV positive. I was just sick. I was going into a week of pure bliss. I had just gotten out of the clear, and now I needed to figure out my life. In that same week, a friend asked me, "Would you ever consider dating someone who was HIV positive?" I didn't even give the question 10 seconds before I said no. No, I could not date anybody who was HIV positive because I couldn't deal with that. I wasn't HIV positive. So why would I ever want to deal with that from anybody? I wanted to make sure that nothing like this ever happened again. So I decided to get on PrEP, a preventative measure that makes you less susceptible to getting HIV if you're exposed to it, which I found out about right after I had gotten sick. When I made my appointment for the following week, and when I came in, my doctor asked me some health questions. Do you drink? Do you smoke? Are you sexually active? Which I thought was strange because I was coming here to get on a preventative measure for sex. But the question I remember the most is when she asked me, "Are you sure you're not HIV positive?" I thought back to the doctor who had asked me the same question, which he was totally wrong. And so I proudly said to her, "No, I have been tested in the past week, and I am not HIV positive." But just to be on the safe side, she decided to test me again for her own record. Only this time she took blood instead of saliva, which made sense because blood is thicker than water. And on November 11th, 2015, I was diagnosed with HIV. My worst fear had finally come to life. It was like I had been shot down from the sky for my own freedom. I felt scared, alone, ashamed. And so many questions swirled through my head. Would I make it past New Year's? Would my family use this as an excuse to say, I told you so, for being gay? But the most important question that I had was, could I drink out of the same bottle of water as a friend? The biggest thing that I needed when I found out my diagnosis was not the great support I received from friends and the great guidance I received from staff and faculty. I needed the advice of someone who stood directly in my shoes, someone who looked like me. I wanted to ask them, how did they get through their diagnosis? Did they cry? Did they skip class? Did they drink to numb the pain? Or did they smoke weed? These were things that might have seemed unimportant to some, but to me, just meant the world. Yet, I could barely find anybody. My friend said I'm a statistic, but I couldn't find anybody. This is a quote from Shawn Michaels' piece, Tables Turn, HIV and Other Stigma. Shawn Michaels wrote this piece for his friend when he was diagnosed with HIV. It reads, "We read the reports, we see the posters, we memorize, internalize, and regurgitate the statistics. Still, we manage to think HIV is something that can't happen to us. That won't be me, we say." And that was me. I thought I could never get HIV until I was sitting in that doctor's office getting my diagnosis. Going back to what my friend said, me being another statistic, I want to show you some statistics from the Center for Disease and Control. Number one, while the number of HIV diagnoses declined for African Americans as a whole from 2015 to 2014, diagnoses among African American gay and bisexual men increased by 22%. To get even deeper, for African American gay and bisexual men ages 13 to 24, it increased 87%. I was 20 when I found out my diagnosis, and 21 now. Some more. Within the African American community, gay and bisexual men are the most that are affected, followed by heterosexual women. And then another one. Among black men, most new infections occur among men who have sex with other men. Men who have sex with other men don't necessarily identify as gay or bi. They usually identify as straight, usually have sexual relations with women, but at times like to have relations with women. Just to give you some background on that. So it's not just gay, and it's not just straight. And for you visual learners, it's a picture of the statistics for regions. If we look at it, in the Northeast, of the cases in 2014 that were diagnosed as HIV, 43% of them were black in the Northeast, here. In the Midwest, 48% were black. And in the South, 54% of the people diagnosed with HIV were black. Yeah, those statistics are insane. then we also go into some education. The CDC lists some things as to why this may happen. 3, to be exact. The first is preference. Because you choose to date someone who identifies as African American, you are more likely to be exposed to HIV. The second is socioeconomic status, or factors, and it reads, the social and economic realities that exist in some African American communities may lead to increased risks of HIV. These include poverty, racial discrimination, less access to health care, and higher rates of incarceration, which can disrupt social networks and decrease the number of available partners for women. The last is stigma, or what I like to call fear. Fear of disclosing risk behaviors or sexual orientations may prevent African Americans from seeking testing, prevention and treatment services, and support from families and friends. In the beginning of my sophomore year, I got a tattoo. Here it goes right here. I'm gonna flex for you guys so you can see it a little. You can see it halfway, but it's a quote from Stokely Carmichael, a member of the Black Panther Party. And it reads, the secret of life is to have no fear. It's the only way to function. Fear is something that sometimes can hinder us. Fear of being judged, fear of the unknown. I think back to when my friend asked me that question. Would you consider dating someone who was HIV positive? And I told her no. I said no. Instead of educating her and talking to her about the issue, I chose to say it wasn't my problem. I represent a bigger picture. I chose to succumb to my own fears. I think of another movement that was started out of fear. Fear that black men and women cannot roam freely through this country without being susceptible to police brutality. That movement is called Black Lives Matter. When we say Black Lives Matter, we say it as accountability, as a testament to living in America. But we cannot just say Black Lives Matter for ourselves. HIV Black Lives Matter. Trans Black Lives Matter. Queer Black Lives Matter. Low-income Black Lives Matter. Women Black Lives Matter. We, as a community, have an obligation to learn our own oppression. And we can do that through school, but we can also do it through what I like to call Google. Google it. But we do have an obligation to that, to be allies for one another and not have surface level allyship, which was something that I had. HIV is something that we can change as a community. The statistics have always been there. Like I said before, I just Googled them. And that question that my friend asked is a question that I'm sure has been asked plenty of times before and what will be asked in the future. But the most important thing is how we answer that question. We, as a community, need to come together. Because let me remind you, If we keep on this trajectory, 1 in 2 gay and bisexual men will be diagnosed with HIV. 1 in 20 men who have sex with other men will be diagnosed with HIV. And 1 in 48 women will be diagnosed with HIV. These statistics are insane. I'm going to end with another quote by Shawn Michaels. He says, "I am afraid because compared with white men who have sex with other men," and note, this is an umbrella term in this point, so it's including bi, gay, and men who have sex with other men. Black men who have sex with other men are significantly less likely to be alive in 3 years after receiving an AIDS diagnosis. I fear the looming battle against stigma he will face as a black gay man with HIV. I fear he will lose his sense of self-worth, self-esteem, and perhaps even himself. To my HIV-positive individuals, I know it's tough. I know sometimes you may feel like giving up, but you got to keep pushing. Remember that you are human and you are worth it. I know there are some times where you may feel defeated. There are some times where you'll succumb to your own fears. But when you go to sleep, remember that you're waking up to a new day, to a new dime, and you are worth it. Do not let fear get the best of you. You don't think I'm scared as shit right now? Well, I am. But I know this goes beyond me and myself. This is a narrative that needs to be told to countless others, not only in our community, but outside of our community. Because these numbers are all here, and they'll continue to get higher if we do nothing about it. My name, and also we have to take into account socioeconomic status. There are individuals that may not necessarily be able to get their treatment or be able to get the resources that they need to educate themselves on HIV. But I believe with conversation and more activism, we can change that. This is something that we can change as a community and through allyship. We've done it before. My name is Anthony Jezreel Anderson. I am an HIV-positive black gay man, and I am positively tipping. I hope you can join me. Thank you.